What the fuck is that? What the fuck was that?
Jesus Christ. What the fuck?
Alright guys, this is Revelia here with ProPhysique.com, and I have some awesome guests today. Two of my closest friends, Dr. Layne Norton and IFBB Bikini Pro Laurin Conlin. And what we're going to talk today about is goal setting. Specifically, we have 5 tips for how to set goals to achieve them. So with that, why don't we get started with the first tangible goal, and that would be setting something specific. Let me get your thoughts on setting specific goals and if you feel that's valuable.
Well, I think especially with regards to like short-term goals, you want to be really specific because, like for example, what I get a lot of is like I want to have a better physique this year, and it's like okay, well, what would you term as better, right?
Sure.
So, and maybe that's okay for a long-term goal, but what you want to do is have reliable check marks that you can check off the list as you're going through. I literally have a list in my office of goals for this year.
See, I knew you'd be good for this video.
And they, you know, last year, and I can happy to say they all have check marks next to them. You know, I hit all those goals, and but I think that's really important because with long-term goals, like I look at long-term goals anywhere between 1 and 10 years, and so now obviously I guess it could be longer than 10 years, but anything over a year, and so. If that's such a long building thing that if you're only focused on that, you don't have any of those short-term goals along the way to keep you going, you're going to really lose motivation because it's going to be like, I'm never going to get to it, I'm never going to get to it. But if you just focus on, you know, I have, you know, kind of short-term goals that are like a couple months, and then I have weekly, and I even have daily stuff, just micro stuff.
Right.
I call it micro goals.
So by setting smaller specific goals, you can achieve the larger goals.
I cannot emphasize enough, you gotta write it down. If you don't write it down, you don't give voice to it, you're not held accountable for it.
Writing it down does make it more real. If it's in your head, you're only accountable to yourself.
Just like tracking your macros, logging your workouts, it changes your behavior. When you actually write it down, it changes your behavior.
So what are your thoughts on setting specific goals?
Well, I think it's really important, like Layne said, people will say, I want a specific physique, or I want a better physique. Well, you have to have things, which is going into the next goal, which is measurable things. So number 2 is measurable. I think relating back to specific goals, you have to have things that you can kind of have like benchmarks as, okay, I hit this or I hit that. And it needs to be more specific as far as like, okay, I have X amount of weight to lose, I want to drop X amount of body fat, I want to get my calories up to this level, I want to run a marathon, or you know what I mean? Maybe not me, obviously.
Run a marathon.
I hate running, not running a marathon. But things need to be measurable and quantifiable, because otherwise then you're just kind of in this days of, I have these goals.
And specifically when we're talking about physique goals, those can be very difficult because those
they're the hardest,
almost the most difficult to actually quantify. Whereas if you set like a financial goal, like I want $1,000 in savings, I want to have $5,000 in savings, you can actually attain those. Whereas if you want a quantifiable goal of say 18-inch arms, you know, that can be very difficult to measure. How much body fat are we talking about? You know, do you have a post-pump or, you know, pre-pump? And what's nice about powerlifting is you have those tangible markers of hitting a 300-pound bench or a 400-pound squat, and you know that you've hit that number. Whereas you can say, I want to be, you know, 12% body fat at 200 pounds, but that's different. That's
depends on how you get it measured, depends on what day it is. And
even for powerlifting, like you can set, you know, you can't go in and PR every time. It's just not going to happen, right? But maybe you set a volume PR, you know, or you really focus on, okay, you're like if you're using some kind of tracking device or your bar path or whatever. So okay, I did the same way that I did last time, but my bar path is better this time.
More efficient.
So,
or even smaller than that, like that's super high level. Even setting a specific goal, as in I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week.
So when it comes to what we do with coaching athletes, I hear a lot of people say, I want to get on stage at X weight. That's a measurable goal. Now, that's great if you want to get on stage at that weight, but a lot of times I find that men have an unrealistic expectation that they're going to be a certain body fat percentage at a certain weight, and they need to lose a lot more weight. So measurability.
Or the opposite with girls, sometimes they think they need to be too light.
Yes.
And they actually don't need to be that. Unless you've done a ton of shows and you know I pretty much have a set stage weight after doing 13 shows.
Right.
If you're new to this, you're probably not going to have a measurable stage weight.
Sure.
Especially if you do.
I mean, it's okay to have a target. I mean,
Target is good.
I give my clients kind of, if they ask for it, I'll tell them, look, I think you'll be around this, but don't get hung up on that number.
I remember my first show, you gave me a number and I was 5 pounds below it by the time I got to stage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I liked the idea of going, because even that number that you gave me, I was like, whoa, that's light.
Yeah.
But it set a, once I got there, I realized that I still had work to do, and I wasn't afraid to go past that.
Well, that was my whole thing with making this video, is that I like goals, and I think they're super important, but I think people need to be flexible, which we need to add as the 6th thing on the list. Okay. You have to be flexible with your goals, because if you're not, if you say, I want to gain 100 pounds of my total, but maybe that doesn't happen. Like, you're not a failure because that didn't happen. As long as you're actively working towards those goals, it happens.
Failure isn't final. Failure is not final unless you're dead. No. If you're dead, then you got permission to quit, okay? Otherwise, like, dust yourself off, dry your tears, and keep pressing forward.
What about you, Laurin, for accountability? What's keeping you accountable in the master's program at USF?
Definitely Dr. Campbell. Having, like you said, a great mentor will keep you accountable when things get hard, but also knowing that I can impact people with my research has really held me accountable. If it wasn't as meaningful to me, I don't think I would have maybe stuck through it as much, but this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. Right. So that's what's keeping me accountable. That's why I know it's going to help people.
Sorry, jump in, interrupt, but that's why you gotta love it, because
I'm used to it. You're my other mentor.
When the hard times come, and I mean they're going to come, you really got to love it. If you're not in it for the right reasons, and we can extrapolate this to fitness, like I'll read people's updates sometimes, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, you hate this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're just doing it because you want to look better and you feel like this is what you should do. Like, if you don't love competition, don't do it, you know? Because it's going to get hard, and like that's when you're going to back out and give up. So the other thing that kept me accountable was, as bad as it sounds, myself, like just writing those goals down. Like, honestly, I was like, I have a fear before I write down a goal, because I'm like, once I put that on paper, now, like, it's gotta happen, right? Like, I wrote it down, I said it, you know? But surrounding yourself with the right people is absolutely so critical. Like, and I'm not saying you gotta just kick people out of your life, but if you're around people who are like constantly negative, or all they do is talk about other people, or they're just focusing on like negative, small, insignificant, like, you got to get those people out of your life. Like, as bad as it sounds, and you got to surround yourself with people who are striving, trying to do more, trying to do better. Like, that's, having that kind of support system is huge. You did a good job. You know what I mean?
Let your accomplishment sink.
Yeah, let it, yes, enjoy it. Like, once you actually accomplish that goal, because if it's always just the next thing, like, you're going to grind yourself down. Like, it's going to be tough, right? If you're never giving yourself that credit. But at the same time, you don't want to just, people think there's like this happily ever after, right? Like, you hit this big goal, whatever, and that's going to last for a short period of time. So once you accomplish the next thing. So like, after Worlds this year, I did as good as I possibly could have done, had the best meet of my life. I remember I was out on my boat one day just kind of like reflecting on stuff, and I was like, you know what, Layne? You did a pretty fucking good job. You know, like, you did a really good job. And then it was like, okay, now what's the next thing?
Exactly.
So, and
happiness is a constant continuation of looking for that next thing that keeps you engaged and keeps you excited. I think a lot of people have the misconception, like, okay, my goal is to have a family and a house and a nice car,
and then you're happy,
and you get all those things, and sure, you've accomplished something and you're happy, but it's about what's next. What is the next thing that is going to keep me excited and motivated? Setting realistic goals, and maybe we could discuss the opposite side of the spectrum. Have you ever set goals that were unrealistic?
Maybe unrealistic in a time frame.
Sure.
That would probably be my number one problem, thinking that I can do everything quickly, or that if I don't do it quickly, then I'm not doing it right. Like something must be wrong if I'm not achieving things like overnight. And as I've gotten more into the business side of things and competing and everything, I started to realize that things take time in order for them to be good. You know what?
This before.
And especially with my research, like that made me really kind of reflect on like, am I doing something wrong? No, that's just the process of it.
Yeah.
And things that, you know, like getting my pro card took a lot longer than maybe I thought it would. You know what I mean? Initially.
Never mind that she got it when she was like 20.
Okay,
22?
doesn't matter. But when I set out to start it in my head, you know what I mean? So I don't think that I set maybe necessarily unrealistic goals, but I try to hold myself to them to be too quickly, maybe.
Well, I even think some goals we might think are unrealistic until we start chipping away at them.
Yeah.
Like I think, especially Layne, like if you'd have told him a couple of years ago, do you think you'll ever squat 600, 650 pounds, whatever it was, he would have said, no, that's not a realistic goal for him. But every time he would go through a training block and hit a squat PR, probably, maybe, you know, like if you ask him now, could you ever squat 700? That's within reach at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that your short-term goals need to be the more like realistic goals.
Right.
I think your long-term can be that big, audacious.
Right.
I'm not sure if it can happen. You know, that sort of thing. I mean, you're absolutely right. Focus with regards to realistic goals. You focus on what you can control.
A lot of times when we think of a goal, we think we know how to get there, and that changes over time too. So it might be unrealistic the way that we used to approach it, but then we find a new avenue that's more effective.
Right.
You know what makes it completely unrealistic? If you don't try. By pursuing that goal, you become such a strong, powerful, confident person that you can look at something else and say, well, I think I'll go do that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because what it teaches you, what you understand from it. And I learned so much from bodybuilding when I was younger in terms of, like, it took a very unconfident, down on himself, low self-esteem person, and it turned him into, I mean, again, you guys know me. Do you know anybody that's much more confident than me in what I'm going to do? Like, not in an arrogant way, but just, I know what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, but I took that and I said, it just was like a light bulb. I can do this in academia, I can do this in business, I can do this in I can apply that to every other aspect of life instead of just using it for one thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for goal setting. I don't know, kind of all over the map.
Yeah,
discussion.
our idea of going 1 to 5 didn't work out as planned, but we touched on the point.
Basically, what we wanted to say is set specific goals, make sure they're measurable, make sure you're accountable. Within that accountability, there needs to be flexibility. You need to be able to adjust. They have to be realistic, and set realistic time frames within those goals as well. So for your longer term goals, make sure you're setting points,
Smaller.
checkpoints along the way that are smaller. And then, you know, what is it saying? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Single step.
So you just work your way.
Only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
Ew. Don't ever say that again.
You thought fireworks were food. Don't you dare say anything about it.
And you're not even dieting.
Yeah.
I know.
I can see those like prep. Like, wait, did you just ruin some food? I think I'll include the video for those that don't know. I had a camera on Laurin yesterday, and Layne walked up with the pop rocks.
The pop rocks, yeah.
Threw them at her feet.
Fireworks.
And here's the video. And then yes, that was the result. And then when I turned it off, she turned and said,
She looks at the paper laying on the ground. She goes, "Wait, is that food?"
So Laurin likes to eat. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much from Layne and Laurin and myself. We appreciate you watching. If you enjoy the content, I'd appreciate you clicking the subscribe button, as well as Laurin's channel. She's got a new vlog channel. She just got done with her breast aug vlogs. She's about cleared to train again, right? So
slowly.
And then Layne's getting ready.
You just sent her every 17-year-old subscriber you've ever had.
What do you mean? We got bigger boobs than she does.
Hey.
Used to.
And Layne's videos right now are you getting ready for the Arnold powerlifting
Yes,
meet?
yeah. I have the Arnold coming up. Hopefully my hip decides to stop being a scumbag and train the way I want to train and give it a go.
Whenever Layne's hurt, we know he's about to set a PR.
Yeah, right. So, I can't even complain about being injured anymore because I think people are just going to think I'm making it up. They're like, yeah, you injured, then go set PR.
Too much, Layne.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you.